A very good morning. Today we will be discussing Mary Parker Follett under UGC Net Public Administration. So MP Follett falls under Unit 2, that is Administrative Thinkers of the UGC Net syllabus. Now about MP Follett, she was an American management consultant, social worker, philosopher, and the pioneer in the fields of organizational theory and organizational behavior. She served in the management committee of the President to the US, and her work was lost, but then it was later rediscovered and widely used in UK, Japan, and USA. That's because the Industrial Revolution, it has resulted in a pathetic condition of the worker, and they wanted to improve the worker satisfaction. She belonged to the classical times, but were grouped in the new classical era, and hence she was called far ahead of her times. She was critical of the classical school and emphasized on human aspect of the organization. Now, in 2025 January, there came this question that Peter Drucker, he has called the prophet of management to whom? So it was Mary Parker Follett. Now, the difference between classical and neoclassical school. The classical school, they defined organization only as physical structure, that is man, a cog in the machine. But the neoclassical, they defined organization as a social system consisting of dynamic human beings. They gave importance to the principle of organization to maximize the profit, but the neoclassical one, they gave importance to the social and the psychological factors to maximize the profit and the satisfaction of the workers. Then the classical, they defined work from an included perspective without any scope for personal interaction at the workplace. But the neoclassical, they defined work from a wider perspective, that is work as a group activity. Now the classical, they give importance to the formal authority to ensure compliance with the order, but the neoclassical, they emphasized on informal organizations to ensure better implementation of orders. The classical thinkers, they define motivation only in terms of monetary incentive, that is Taylor's piece rate system. But the neoclassical, they define motivation in terms of multidimensional nature, that is rewards, recognition given to the worker in order to improve their satisfaction. Then classical, they believed only in one best way of performing the task, while the neoclassic, they believed in the reward and recognition to improve employee satisfaction, that is basically they believed in innovation. Now, important works of MP Follett, which you have to learn and memorize for the examination. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, it was published in 1896. The New State, 1918. Creative Experience, 1924. This was the most important work, as all of the concepts, they were derived from this book. Then Dynamic Administration, the collected papers of Mary Parker Follett, they were her speeches which were published posthumously. Then Freedom and Coordination, lectures in the business organization. So these were the lectures which were then published after her death. Then assumptions made by MP Follett regarding organization. She assumed that organization must exist to protect the self-esteem, prestige, independence, and honor of the people. Human beings are intelligent, capable, and responsible, and she gave new interpretation to classical principles. Now, the main concept of MP Follett, which you need to memorize, is constructive conflict, process of giving orders, power, authority, and control, planning and coordination, and leadership. So first of all is constructive conflict, which was the most celebrated principle given by MP Follett. So she said that conflicts are inevitable in an organization, which means that they have to occur and due to emotional and ideological factors or differences. So two people in an organization, they have to have differences which will lead to conflict. Now she gave three process by which the conflict can be resolved, that is dominance, compromise, and integration. So dominance is basically overruling the other and imposing your own thoughts on the other. It means that you just impose your thoughts and ideas on the other person without taking into consideration theirs. So, but dominance is a temporary measure and it ultimately leads to exploitation and further revolution. Then comes compromise, in which the conflict is postponed to a future date and both parties, they compromise. They are not getting the expected thing, but they compromise. It is also a temporary measure and it is postponed to a later date. The conflict is postponed to a later date. Then comes integration. Integration is the most important concept. She gave the steps to integration, which is discussion and negotiation, clearly express your expectation, problem divided into small parts. Then we have a solution to each problem and aggregate all the solutions. For example, the case of river water dispute of Satluj Yamuna link. In this case, all the parties, that is Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan, they have to discuss and negotiate and then clearly express their expectations out of this project. Then the problems should be divided into small parts. In this case, we will divide Satluj and then Yamuna, and then come separately out for each solution to Satluj and Yamuna, then aggregate the solution to come to an integrated solution. Now there are also hurdles in the integration. There is a natural tendency to dominate. Intelligence, understanding, responsibilities needed from each party. Quested interest to keep the conflict going to remain relevant. For example, in this case, the SYL, it becomes a political issue, then it cannot be resolved, because if it is resolved, then the leaders, they don't remain relevant anymore. Then the leaders therefore tend to complicate the issue much further, and then there is a problem of abusive language which further increases the conflict situation. Now in 2025 again, there was a question according to MP Follett, what are the 3 ways of resolving a conflict? So it is compromise, integration and domination, as we have discussed above. Now the second principle is process of giving orders. So she assumes that everyone in the organization is equal and there is no hierarchy. So this is very important point from which a direct question can be asked. She believes that there should be no hierarchy, but then if there is no hierarchy, then how can we decide who will give orders and who will receive orders? So she gave a new concept of law of situation. So law of situation is a situation in which the circumstances dictate what to do and what not to do. For example, the case of COVID-19. So first of all, when the first wave of COVID-19, there was a strict lockdown. But later on, in the second wave, there was more emphasis on the economy. So who dictated these things? The dictation was according to the vaccine development. So in the first wave, there was not a vaccine development, therefore it led to a stringent lockdown. But in the second case, there was vaccine development. So the situation dictated the policy maker what to approach further. Now third thing she gave is power, authority and control. Authority she defined as the acceptance or the willingness of other people of the organization to accept the orders of the leader. And she also gave a concept of depersonalization of authority. So this is also important keyword. Authority belongs neither to a person nor a position, but it belongs to the situation. As we have discussed, the law of situation. Such an authority cannot be delegated because there is no person or a position but situation. And situations it cannot be delegated. Now there is another BYQ which asks which of the following has different viewpoint regarding authority. So we have is Chester Bernard, Herbert Simon, MP Follett. So Taylor, he was the odd one out in this case because he belonged to the classical era. Then we have his power. She gave co-active power, that is the sharing of powers with other according to the law of situation, and not coercive power, which is basically the dominating power which was given by the classical thinkers. Then we have is, she said that be the causal agent of change, which means that the leader, he should innovate in order to face the situation, and the power comes from this basic innovation. As you can, if you are the causal agent of change, you naturally become the leader and have power. Then on control, she said that there should be fact control and not person control, which means the situation again will control the everything and not any person in the organization. Then comes planning and coordination. Coordination at the early stages of organization only, as there is no hierarchy in Follett's organization, as we have discussed below. So the coordination in Follett's organization, they have to be coordinated at the early stages because later on they cannot be coordinated as there is no hierarchy. Then planning by the leader according to the law of situation, and planning is a continuous and fluid activity. Then comes leadership. She proposed a law of situation to dictate the leader rather than positional authority. Leader energizes the group and takes the initiative. So whenever there is a need for some expertise, that basic person becomes the leader. Then there is the criticism of Follett. Follett was an idealistic thinker and she was far ahead of her time. And sociological aspect of the organization, that is informal organizations, they were put to the corner, and she overemphasized the psychological aspect of the organization. And then come the contribution of Follett. So her work is seminal. and original. So no thinker before her has ever spoken on the topics she has spoken. So many administrative thinkers like Bernard Lickert, Douglas McGregor, Chris Argyris, they were inspired by her. Decentralization, participation, improvement, they were derived from Follett's idea. Peter Drucker called her the prophet of management, which was also asked in the question paper. She was known as the mother of management. Warren Bennis said that it's her work, they are very important and relevant. And these are some quotes of the Follett which you can read and memorize to some extent. Basically, if you have a good hold on the concept, you will naturally know. And that is it. If you have any question regarding any of the ideas of Follett, you can pinch me in the comment box. Have a nice time.